All right, good morning, everyone. We are streaming live today. I just want to remind everyone today is 9/11. Some crazy stuff going on in the world right now, but just remember, life is short and everything, time is precious, right? But yeah, so I got a good group today. I do have Ray, What Pros Do, and I got Dylan joining us. So good morning, fellas.
Good
What's up,
morning. How's it
guys?
going?
Yeah, so this is going to be kind of based around a video that Rob built put out talking about their collapse in Airbnb and Airbnb is dead. He interviewed with Zuber and they were discussing that. So the link for that video is in the chat. But I know Ray's been big in the Airbnb space right now, so maybe he can touch it off and if he's watched the video and kind of what his thoughts were on it.
Yeah, I thought the video was interesting. Definitely the title grabbed my attention, you know what I mean? But I think they had some really good conversations, right? Like, I think Zuber really said some key things. There's the fakers, right? That are just saying, oh my God, you could be millions of dollars and tons of cash flow and whatnot. And I agree, right? Like, I see those people, those arbitrage individuals in the space. And some of them are operating correctly, right? It just depends on the kind of operator you are. Some people are finding great success in that strategy, but there's also your phonies, right? So I think the conversations that they had, I think, is accurate, right? If you're in the space of Airbnb, it's more competitive. It is what it is, and as people see the benefits of Airbnb, I'm sorry, but like you can't be lazy anymore, and that's just the honest truth. And those are the things that have to be recognized. The days of the easy money during COVID, and you could just throw a bed, like Rob Built said, is kind of gone. And it's going to cost more to get your place staged and stuff like that. So I also kind of wanted to say is like in general, is Airbnb dead, right? I'm still fairly new into the space, but I am surrounded by co-hosters, owners, and I can tell you right now, the people that are doing well in Airbnb are putting in the work. The time right now that we're dealing with Airbnbs when it's slow, this is slow season, right? Like we're about to get into it. If you're not optimizing like your clientele and really not like doing the homework and being like, who is my clientele now that I've had a couple of years under my belt, if you're not really honing in on those people and optimizing your property to better help those individuals, then yeah, you're gonna slowly not do so well in your Airbnb, right? So I think that's the best time. When we're slow, we need to think different strategies and find ways to make our properties more valuable.
All right, before we let Dylan kind of touch on if he got hit with the clickbait title on that one, I do want to say good morning to Frank, old guy REI. Thanks for stopping by. And he went strong last night. He's 2 years running his Wednesday night accountability call, even though Zuber had his call at the same time. Frank went strong. But congratulations, man. And John, Deconstructing Dream is here. So hopefully you are resting up. You are in the Airbnb space also, but you're dealing with a little health issue right now. So rest up, man. But Dylan, so yeah, did the clickbait title get you?
Yeah, no, I thought it was definitely interesting, especially after seeing the one a couple weeks ago where people were, the podcast where they were essentially saying that buying the one rental at a time strategy is dead. I was like, oh, it's funny, they're just flipping it around because they saw that one got a lot of clicks. They're like, oh, let's just flip it and do it on the other side. I do think something that is very present in both strategies and something that a lot of the Airbnb people are realizing now is that once an opportunity starts to get saturated, the best bubble to the top while the majority of people just exit altogether. In that you'll see in a lot of different types of things that get really popular. Like for a while there, social media marketing was a really popular business and everybody wanted to do that. And then there were a few people that did well at that. but the people that did the best at it are the ones stayed. Most people moved on to the next thing, which could have been Airbnb or whatever business somebody was selling a course for at the time. Yeah.
So like as I mentioned, John Deconstructing Dreams, who's also in the Airbnb space, says arbitrage is faster to get units, but way riskier and doesn't take advantage of all levers for creating wealth. And I kind of also relate that to maybe the sub two kind of creative finance thing, which is a good way to get units, but the margin is very slim. So your margin for error is also slim. And I think that's the thing. If you're not willing to put in the work or be skilled at it, those are the people that are gonna be struggling or having a difficult time right now, right?
I think that's so well said, Mark. Like, there's complex strategies in real estate, and that's why I love it, right? You have the easy route where, I would assume, in my opinion, is like your long-term rental. You buy it, you get a good rate, 30 years, super easy, right? But then you have your subject to, where it's complicated. You got to do your paperwork right. You got to make sure, everything, your ducks are in a row. But it doesn't make it a bad strategy, right? It doesn't make it a con. It doesn't make it like some fake thing. It all depends on how you execute and if your strategy is viable. And it's the same way I see about Airbnbs, right? It's so easy to say that Airbnbs is a fraud. It's all quick money, right? But the people who are really putting in the work, just like they do with their long-term rentals, those are the ones that are finding success, right? And I think the biggest thing is you just got to make sure you surround yourself with the right people in anything that you're doing in real estate.
Dylan, any thoughts on that? Do you have any sub two or creative finance stuff right now in your portfolio, or?
I've tried. I really don't tend to. I like creative finance. I haven't liked sub two as much, just due to the fact that I would be buying the deal only because it works with that specific debt product. So if that debt product was removed, or I had to refinance out of that, all of a sudden the deal doesn't work now. That's why I've liked creative finance a little bit more, but I don't have anything creative in my portfolio yet. I've submitted plenty of offers for seller finance. I just haven't gotten anything done yet.
There's an interesting comment from Jeff, who's in York, Pennsylvania, but he says we avoid single family homes trying to help them be available for newcomers to get on the property ladder. I never heard that kind of thought process, but interesting. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But I also I do this weekly kind of comment section review on Zuber's videos and whatnot, and there was one. I think you were touching on it a bit also too for the Airbnb and whatnot, people putting in the work. But this comment was kind of mentioning how they see how the old mom and pop landlords are going to be the ones winning, the ones that are kind of doing their own maintenance, self-managing, getting back to the basics. And to Ray's point, like the ones that are putting in the work for the Airbnb, right, having a unique listing or making their listing stand out, or making it a unique adventure or stay. And I think that goes back to that person's comment talking about, people are complaining about real estate, is not a good investment right now. But people that are putting in the work and going back to the basics are the ones that's going to kind of win right now. Is that what you guys think also, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, can I just add something to that? Like, I'm seeing, I'm so inside the business of real estate, right? I just shot like 3 homes yesterday, and I'm just like, okay, I asked every single homeowner, why are they selling? Like, one's upgrading, the other one's moving out of state, the other one's going for work, right? So like, my biggest thing is I got a good pulse on what's happening in my area. And I can tell you right now, the people that are struggling in the rental space, long-term rental, are the one that are over leveraged, that have been like using their house as a piggy bank, right? And they're at the point now, they're just like, they're having liquidity issues. To be honest, there's a lot of people having liquidity issues, right? And the big issue now is like, hey, like, I think one of the biggest things we just saw, interest rates go from 6.5 to like 6.25, right? So a lot of these people who don't have that, that discipline, they're looking at their house again as like, hey, I have a liquidity issue. Let's refinance. Let's go and do it. But in the long term, if they're looking like a long term strategy, maybe they shouldn't be doing that. Maybe they should find ways to create more income to fix their liquidity problem versus keep tapping in by just refinancing, right? And that's why I actually created a post recently, because I just had a lot of friends and family were just like, "Oh, did you see the quarter? It went down a quarter." And I was like, "Hey, slow your roll. Think your strategy through." You know what I'm saying? You have a 3% interest rate. You really want to go to 6.25 for what? You know what I'm saying? So that's my thought.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in. You guys may be wondering why we're going a little bit later today, but that's because I did my weekly recording with Zuber. So go check that one out. I'm not sure when he's going to release it, but yeah, it was a fun one. Like I said, I tune in for it because we did talk about Frank going strong, 2 years, Wednesday accountability group. So if people didn't know, those that bought the tickets early for the ORAD event were able to have Zuber on live on Zoom, and Dion showed up, Lumberjack showed up at the same time that the number one accountability group in school was going on Wednesday. Um, but Frank went strong. He didn't cancel. He kept his going. So those that want to tune in had questions that maybe didn't buy their tickets yet, right? So, but yeah, Frank, great job out there. But yeah, those of you who are tuning in, we are kind of discussing the video that Zuber interviewed Rob built about Airbnb being dead, and it sounds like Robert is liquidating a lot of his portfolio, and also kind of transitioning more to like a niche space, right? Is that kind of how you guys picked up on it also?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like what a lot of the long-term landlords do, he's essentially doing something very similar to the build up a really big portfolio and then just keep your favorite assets. Like from the video, at least what I gathered was he built this large Airbnb portfolio, and I've been following for a while, so I've seen him build this as he's doing it, and he's realized that some of them just aren't worth the time, but others are, like some of them create the majority of the income. So why have all of these other ones when you could focus on more important things, like building more of these that generate all of that income? So I think he's just recashing up, selling off all of these properties that are just lackluster and keeping the ones that are fantastic. And it sounds like he's also trying to go more down the commercial route. So whether that's development, actually it sounds like most of it is development, and like building like communities and stuff like that he can get assessed on cap rate for the valuation of the property, which just I think is smart long term. And I think that's what, if there's anybody that's going to stay in the space for a really, really long time and they want to build it big, I think that's what they'd all do.
Hyder makes a great point. Says investment strategies should ideally be controllable. A strategy that relies on controllable rates may not be a sound strategy. And then Jeff says, yes, I like Dion's. Their minimum number of units for the right income philosophy. Yeah, that small and mighty investor like Coach Carson and whatnot. So I think that's why a lot of the community relates to it. But even those like Ray who and John, they like the Airbnb space because it does have more cash flow, but you're also willing to do the work. And that's kind of goes back to, maybe one of Zuber's also main points, right? Is doing the work. And funny, I kind of bring that up is because I do have a lot of investors kind of reaching out to me nowadays and kind of always like, who do you use for property management? Or, that's where a lot of people find the struggles. But I feel like they're reaching out also because they thought they could just buy a property, hand it over to a property manager, and then they were done. They're just gonna take in the cash flow, right? So I think there's a lot of people that aren't willing to put in the work, and they don't realize that, the next step is becoming a landlord, right? So is that kind of what you guys maybe see out there, or maybe your guys' process of through your journey that you guys have gone through also?
I'm gonna have to say is like, being a landlord or just owning real estate that's aside from your main residence, there's a huge learning curve, right? And you got to earn your stripes. And for me, at the very beginning, it was roommates, right? I just had to learn how to communicate with roommates. Like I didn't even know how to do that. And, I'm helping a bunch of couples right now on their real estate journey just because it's just something that, like, my wife and I like to give back, and we enjoy their company. And we just helped a couple build their own Airbnb, and they just had a 2-week booking after listing their property like 2 to 3 days ago or something like that, right? And it was like, like a $2,800 booking. And for them, it was like the reality of proof of concept, right? But now they're like, holy crap, like we're so scared. Like we're getting this person in here. Are they real? Is this fake or whatnot? And this is where I tell them is like, welcome to earning your stripes. You know what I'm saying? This is where you're going to learn. And some of these things, yes, I can try to help you out and give you some ideas on how to work it. But sometimes you just got to go through it and go through the trenches, So that's the way I kind of see it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to see if I could put a picture real quick to put it up next to Dylan, but there was a comment said I thought that was Jesse Eisenberg. On so, but we'll do that next time. But
I saw that. I don't know who that is though. I'll have to look it up later.
I believe he's referring to the individual that was played Mark Zuckerberg in
Oh my
not
gosh.
I don't know what the movie was called, and I don't think it was called Facebook, or was it called Facebook? But I think that
The
character.
Social Network?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, I don't think I look like that guy. But no, I'm with you, Ray. I feel like in any business, you have to at least just get in it and be willing to get beat up a little bit to get to the other side of greatness. Like, it's easy to say that, like in anything that people want to do, that, oh, well, I'm just going to do this and I expect it to be like this profitable. But there's people that have been doing it a lot longer than you. And not only do they have the time edge over you, but also they have the time in the assets too. So like how you've owned your properties for a while, you have substantially better rates than I do. Like that, plus the fact that you have principal pay down and everything like that on your properties, just overall puts you in a better position. Um, I think that's something we all just got to learn. Like first time dealing with a maintenance request, first time dealing with an eviction, all that stuff. I don't have an eviction right now. I hope I don't have an eviction, but when we cross that bridge, we'll cross that bridge, and I'll learn how to deal with that.
All right, some other people tuning in. We got Bill all fired up tuning in. We got Stan tuned in. I saw earlier. I know I see a lot of his travel photos. I love it. He's in. I think he's in South
Everywhere.
Africa. Yeah, he is. Um, but Steve, the accidental landlord, says So they're talking about house hacking also in the chat. But he says, I wish my wife would let us house hack. And Ray, I forgot your situation because you didn't house hack, right? But you got your wife on board to do kind of the, I don't know, Airbnb house hack in a sense, right?
Well, actually, when I first purchased my home, the first thing I did was move in a bunch of gamers, and they were there for like 3 to 4 years playing like StarCraft and World of Warcraft at the time. So I didn't call it house hacking. It was called, I was alone in an apartment and I was bored and I bought a house and I put roommates in it, whatever you want to call that, right? And then I just never thought about real estate as like, oh, I was making money. It was just helping reduce my bills, right? And then I guess it was an accidental house hack. I knew I was doing it, but I wasn't like proactively thinking that was the strategy.
I do think it's interesting how a lot of people will say that they don't want to house hack, like in the sense of having a multifamily property that you live in while other people live in the other units, yet people live in apartments. That's normal. People live in townhouses with families. That's normal. So why, when you own the property, is it not normal for you to live in it and then you rent out the other units to pay the mortgage? Like, I don't get how it's any different. Like, you could be paying a different landlord.
I want to answer that, Dylan, because I had roommates, and then I went over and I was living in my houses, and then my wife and I were just like, I don't know if we want to do roommates again, right? And it was Curtis who really was just kind of like put it in me, is like, you ain't too good to be a freaking house hacking. And I was like, shit, he's probably right. You know what I'm saying? So long story short, everybody, we get that feeling, we get that comfort in our home But to be honest, like I was just downstairs the other day and I was just chatting with my Airbnb guests, and it's just normal now. You know what I'm saying? With like our dogs are playing together, and I guess it's hard to kind of picture it, but if you get into it, it becomes normal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I just think it's funny though, because like families live in apartments and townhouses and condos, but as soon as you own the property, somehow it's something completely different. I don't know.
All fired up Bill must have seen the confusion on my face when I was reading his comment, but he clarified it. But he says, my house 2.85 loan rate is kind of hard to let go for a house hack. My houser would not make a good rental. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
you could
yeah.
also look at the ROE on that too. If you really wanted to, dive into the numbers, like, hey, is that 2.85? Like, if you could find a better deal, does it make sense to keep that 2.85 or pay 6%? Like, we could argue that every single way. It's all down to the math, though.
I think the biggest thing I'm seeing right now is that I don't want to say the spouse is the hard, but it's maybe getting someone else on board with whether it's real estate investing, whether it's house hacking, even whether it's Airbnb, right, or what strategy you want to get into. But it seems like Ray, um, you got your spouse on board with the Airbnb, right, and it seems to be working out. And if she wasn't on board, do you think you'd figure out a way to still do Airbnb, or
No, I think you have to be in line, with your spouse. You can't just, stiff farm them. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely got to be in line. If she's not down, well, you ain't down then. You know what I'm saying? But I think the biggest thing is proving proof of concept, right? What I told her was like, if we absolutely hate it and it's not working out and it's ruining our life, we don't do it, right? We just stop and we take our losses and we move on with a different strategy. So I think the biggest thing I could tell you about your spouse if you're having a hard time is just like, can we try it, right? I'm gonna tell you right now, one of the big things I'm gonna have a talk with couples. We're about to go camping here, and there's dreamers in every relationship. You have the dreamer, okay? And I'm not saying both people can't be dreamers, but there's generally one person there that's just like over the top crazy, and you'll know who that is in your relationship, okay? There's some couples that the dynamic is the dreamer gets shut down, you know what I mean, by their couple, by their significant other, and you can't do that, right? You can have your ideas and you guys can have conversations, but if you shut down a dreamer, what happens is a dreamer is going to try things and it's not always going to work, right? But what will happen is as they go through and they fall on their face in one, but one works a little bit better, it changes the trajectory of like what their next move is going to be. And for me, that was me, right? I was dreaming, some ideas didn't work, but now I am where I'm at, and I don't think I could have ever gotten there if my spouse was just diffusing every idea that I have. And this is something I always talk with friends and families, just like you cannot kill a dream, right? You got to give it a chance at least.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Troy, thanks for stopping by. He says, Dylan, you just need some wavy hair to look like Jesse Eisenberg. Um, I also want to kind of, Frank says, my wife lets me know what I'm thinking. Uh, like I was mentioning earlier, Steve, the accidental landlord here, he says, wife say hard no on house hacking. We're 50 now, but he's trying to pitch the idea with an ADU. So yeah, there's always, there's different strategies. You just got to find what may work. I don't know if I'm letting this out too early, but Steve is in the school community and he is working on starting another accountability group. I believe it's going to be on Thursday, so be on the lookout for that. I think he's partnering up with Alex, but it's going to be kind of a very structured, formatted group. I'm not sure if he's actually going to have a buzzer, but you're going to have a kind of a time to put out your maybe what you need help with. or what you need to discuss. And but yeah, I'm very interested to check that out. So be on the lookout for that if you're in the school community. Let's see. Deconstructing Dream. John says, I'm hearing about people saying some kind of sacrifice for house hack. I understand that at all. We all have neighbors. Some are great, some are not. Tenants. I don't have to renew the lease. What?
Oh, that's
Yes.
good.
Troy Roberts says, really depends on where you and your spouse are at in stage of life. It's just, oh, it keeps moving. If it's just you and your spouse is comfortable with giving up some of your privacy. I think, Ray, maybe your wife wanted to do the Airbnb in your guys' unit so that you actually have to spend more time with her and not have your man cave, right? So now that got rid of your man cave, right?
Yeah, no, it did. But also I kind of realized just, I built this thing. I just like building stuff, and I was like, I didn't really use it as much as I thought. And then I was just like, why not make money of it? And then you realize other people really love it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think it's just the adaptation, right? I love sharing the space with the Airbnb guests and hearing their compliments and them writing on the board, because then it kind of tells me is like, hey, my design idea really worked and it didn't suck. You know what I mean? So
I also want to touch on, like we're talking about, is Airbnb dead? But I was telling Ray off camera before we started. There was a video I was watching this morning. The individual was talking about how Airbnb, in a way, is dying to some extent because of the platform. They feel that the platform is changing. It's becoming very more beneficial for the Airbnb side of things and not looking out for the operators that are putting their units on Airbnb. So you had your thoughts on that also, right, Ray?
yeah. Um, can I get there's a question that Troy asked, and I'm trying to recollect myself here. Could you handle that real quick, Dylan? I just want to write this note down.
Yeah.
The oh,
Well, Dylan doesn't have Airbnb, so I don't.
yeah, I don't have Airbnb.
Oh,
Well, I'll just quickly recap. That video was kind of just mentioning how the platform is changing. I believe there's more. I don't know if it's fees is the right ways to
oh,
put it,
that's
right?
what your question was.
But it was kind of talking about how it's
Oh
kind
yeah,
of geared more toward benefiting them instead of the operator, and they had some recommendations on how to still maybe profit from Airbnb, right? Right? Or
yes,
short-term rentals, I should say.
yeah. So sorry about that. I think Troy had mentioned something in his comment in regards of stage of life, and I really love to kind of go over that topic. But to answer your question on this, um, from my experience, okay, I'm a small operator. With the new changes, my wife and I did some research. I think you had actually mentioned it to me, Mark, and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" You know what I'm saying? Is that really going to impact us and all these new fees that they're doing? And we did the research, and essentially, if you're using some kind of CRM product where you're managing a bunch of Airbnbs, your rates are definitely going to go up and change, right? And for small operators like us, we were fortunate that we're really only using Price Labs, and it wasn't really going to be impacting our bottom line as much. But for co-hosters, you know what I'm saying? I think that's going to be more of a problem, because at the end of the day, you can't just keep raising your prices because if the clientele doesn't see the value, then, that could affect you in many different ways, right? So I think, I think a lot of people, they have this thing. If you ever are part of the Facebook groups, oh, that's it, I'm done, I'm quitting Airbnb, I'm gonna sell it. No, like, what I'm saying, let's be real here. Airbnb is like one of the top platforms, right? If you've used VRBO or any other platform, it just sucks in comparison. You know what I'm saying? So if we're gonna use a platform like Airbnb, we just have to understand how to maneuver and make it work for us, right? And just adapt every single time they change something, because at the end of the day, you ain't gonna be able to fire your CEO unless we all come together or something.
That's kind of what John's mentioning. He says Airbnb has changed much to the favor of the guests. They really don't care about the host that much. Pushing for direct bookings helps with that. He just says, Ray, that change will happen for everyone by December.
If
Mm.
if you look at Amazon back when they first started, they took the same process it's always customer first, because at the end of the day, Airbnb's customer isn't the hosts, it's the guests. So if the guests aren't having good experiences with Airbnbs, they don't like Airbnb as much, therefore they'll go stay at hotels. Yeah, it's Amazon strategy. I mean, there's a reason people love Amazon. I think people treat Airbnb the same way. For the integrations that you were talking about, are they charging like a per API access, or like for external bookings, or like what are they charging for?
Essentially, it's from what I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong here. From what I saw, is it's like if you're managing a bunch of Airbnbs where it's like changing your pricing and whatnot, like that's from what I see. But it sounds like here that they're gonna change it for everyone anyway, right? So for me, let's say it does affect me, right? Well, then I just have to figure out what can I increase or what can I not. Like I'm going to essentially just increase my prices to see if I can compensate it. But if now I'm competing with a 3-bedroom home on my 1-bedroom Airbnb, well then I probably have some homework to go do, you know? So like I think I'll just adjust, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm not leaving the platform. What platform am I going to go to? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, am I going to go build my own Airbnb? You know what I mean? It's just the reality.
I do know that that's a thing that hosts are starting to do now. Collect the emails of people that are staying at their places, and they'll send them things. If they have a slow month or something like that, here's 10% off if you book directly through us.
I love this question kind of by Jeff.
Kind of.
He says, "Oh, what?
Oh no, you said kind of.
Oh no, well, I mean, maybe you guys don't. I think it's a great question, but it says, who is their customer, the host or the guest?
I would say the guests are Airbnb's customer at the end of the day. The hosts are the facilitator for the stays. But in that sense, they're kind of like a worker for Airbnb that's processing the thing to give the customers the result they desire. At least that's how I look at it. That's how I look at Amazon sellers too, or anybody that sells on anybody else's platform. All you are is somebody that it owns a small business with inside this bigger business that does work for this bigger business to provide value to their customers. Yeah.
This kind of goes straight into Troy's question about the stage of life. It wasn't really a question. He had mentioned it. In business and in life, things don't stay the same, right? We have different stages. So imagine Airbnb, right? The Airbnb, when they first started, their primary goal would probably, let's get as many hosts on the US as possible. That's their stage of life at the very beginning, right? Well, now they got a lot more people, a lot more hosts, right? And they're like, crap, we have to have customers in order to feed these hosts so they can keep growing, right? So they're in a new stage of life. So, it only makes sense that they're going to balance who they're going to focus on as they grow their business. You know what I mean? So obviously we can't sit here and see how many hosts are in comparison to how many guests are coming. They have all that data. But this is what I assume, right? Nothing stays the same and they're pivoting just like everybody else. So that's the way I kind of see it.
Yeah, I mean, they were optimizing for what they had to optimize for at the time to build their platform. And now they're optimizing for customer experience. So if that includes raising fees, pruning hosts off the platform that are just not doing very good, or just not providing a quality product, I think they're going to do whatever they have to do to get the product to where they want it to be across the board. Because that's the number one complaint I always have when I stay at Airbnbs is I don't know what I'm going to get. Some Airbnbs are amazing, and I'm like, man, I'm definitely staying at an Airbnb again. And then I go stay at another one, and I'm like, man, maybe the Marriott's calling me. It just
Talk to
depends.
Mikey about his Pittsburgh stay. Yeah, he stayed at an Airbnb. He didn't get a lot of sleep, he said. The
Oh no.
neighbors were keeping him up. He said the walls were very thin, and he's he said he didn't get a lot of sleep. um, but John says guests are definitely the customer. However, there's no product to sell without the host. And then Jen says, I think the fees apply to everyone starting December 1st, but applies to people with PMS October 27th. And yes, I'm glad she clarified that. She said PMS meaning property management software, not women problem issues. Um, hey, Big Val is here. Thanks for tuning in, man. Jen says I think this goes back to your dreamer thing, Ray. It says everyone good partnership has a visionary and an integrator. I think this applies to business, but also with your relationship partners, someone to dream and someone to bring you back to earth.
Can I ask you guys that question? And man, like, this is why I love campfires, dude. Because like you get deep, I'm drunk or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I can do some deep dive shit, you know. I
Just
love that.
Ray.
You know what I'm saying? I love doing that. But you know, we have such a great audience here, and I just want to ask is like, how do you guys you know, if you're the person that tends to diffuse, you know, your dreamer's idea, like how could you help that person, right? Because that's one of the things I'm going to talk to the couples, because I notice some of them are diffusing the dreamer, and I don't want to like overstep, but like how do you tell that person that like you got to let them make mistakes, you know, you got to let them dream, right? So I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on like, you know, how somebody in a relationship could potentially help that person, you know, keep dreaming, you know what I'm saying, and not be completely diffused.
It's a really good question. I think if they're more of the calculated person, they could be a little bit more cautious, but try to give insight instead of trying to just say, "Oh no, that idea is terrible. That you'll never make money doing that." Because the people that do that, you won't be in a relationship very long. I can tell you that, or not at least a happy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out. Because I think I've talked about it before too. So like my son's mom, you know, she started a business from Hawaii back in North Carolina. And like I mean, I said there's different levels of support, and I definitely probably wasn't as supportive as I should have been. I mean, I was supportive, but now that I've started social media and everything, I realize how there's a difference in saying you're supportive and like, you know, sharing someone's reels and commenting on their posts and that type of support too, which just helps, right? So I definitely could have did a better job, but I also think too, and I think there's a lot of people on social media talking about it more now. Is it's it's good to, you know, dream and follow your passion, but sometimes that doesn't pay the bills too, right? So it's kind of like how else is your life situated? Like, is everything else in order? And now, yes, let's go follow the dream in a sense, right? So I think that's where I struggle. Like you're saying, right? Like even like my son, right? I don't want to not have him try things, or you know, when maybe when he makes that decision, or I want to be, you know, go down the video game route, or you know, making cartoons and things, right? But it's like maybe why don't we do that after we find a job that's going to pay for, you know, our life, and then let's follow the passion. So yeah, it's a tough one. I go back and forth, I think, on it. But I think just having support, I think that is very important though. But you got to understand that individual also too, right? Like is their life in just such chaos, right? So are you going to be supportive of them following their dream, but everything else is not in order, right? So I think it's the whole picture, and then kind of bringing that into perspective. No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, like it's not only the like I don't want to call them dream killers because they're not doing it on purpose. Well, I hope that they're not, right? But I think it's two-sided. When you said that, the dreamer also has a responsibility to have a track record of progress, right? You can't just be a dreamer and then every dream you have just fails and there's no progress to like do something. You know what I mean? So I think the biggest thing is if you have somebody who, you know, wants to allow you to dream and be a supportive partner, it is also your job as the dreamer to show results and to show consistency, right? And I think that's why my wife really does like believe in me, because everything I've really put my things through, even though I might have failed, it led into a domino. And then that domino was successful. And then she's like, okay, so maybe this first one might not be good, but when he hits the next one, it's good. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think you have to show that track record, and that is the communication, right? And that's what I love about relationships, because relationships are so long, right? So you can kind of adapt and be like, now I understand what this person's good at, that my partner, and you can really like hone in, and you can combine you guys' best traits together to like work even more efficiently.
Hold on, there's a lot of comments I'm trying to catch up with right now. Let's see. Troy Roberts says Airbnb is a moving target that is guest first based policies. They're trying to compete against the hospitality industry that wants to crush their competition. John says over 400K hosts have been kicked off the Airbnb platform for not meeting quality standards in 2000 or 23 and 24. This is a great thing for the good host profitability. Troy says, I'm the dreamer, and sometimes I feel my wife is the dream killer, to be honest. It can be hard, but I know she wants stability, especially when I said I would do a lot of things that didn't hurt. Okay. Before I get into more questions, how about we dig into? So I know people may have seen Ryan Pineda and Rob Built talked about how their title of the video was "One Rental at a Time is Dead," and then Zuber did an interview with Rob Built talking about how Airbnb is dead. Which one do you think is more dead? I guess I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but do you think the one rental at a time strategy is dead, or Airbnb is dead? Or less effective, I should say, maybe.
You want to go first?
No, you go first, Dylan. This is a hard one.
I think it really depends on what your level of effort that you're willing to put into something is. I think buying rentals is always going to be something that if you have a heavy income, or a nice sized income at least, and you're able to do that, I don't see that really ever going away. Like, there is non-cash flow markets, but if you put enough money down, anything will cash flow. I would say for the people that want something easy to do to make their life better at the end of, like, in the future, I would say Airbnb is more dead for them than long-term rentals, because long-term rentals are so much easier. And if you're somebody that just wants to hit the easy button and not put in crazy amounts of work, and that's okay. I only own long-term rentals. I do not want to do Airbnb. I do not want to deal with the guests, because I'm focusing on building a long-term rental portfolio. I realize that, and I also put in the work on that side. But if you just want something simple and don't have to put in a ton of work, but you're willing to save up cash and put down nice down payments, buy properties on the MLS, I think you can make it work with long-term rentals. Like they said, 10 years in, I'm only a couple years in, and I'm already seeing how nice it can be to own long-term rentals. So, 10 years in, I feel like it's going to be amazing. And I'm going to be glad that I bought all of the ones I did, or, probably trade out of some, because I've bought some older 1900s properties that definitely need, maybe exchanged into like 1970s, 1960s or newer.
Well, the way I see it is this, right? It's funny because like I go to these different groups, right? And it's totally different. So the way I see it is like you got two sides. You have the long-term rental side on one side of the road, and you have the Airbnb guys on the right, okay? And it all depends on what floats your boat. You understand? Like, you go to the side on the right, the Airbnb guys, they got tight pants, they're all hippie looking, they're very stylistic. You know what I'm saying? They're with it. They seem like they're with the times. And then you look at the long-term rental guys, and you're just like, oh, dude, they're a little older, they got that wisdom in them. They don't got that kind of excitement, you know what I'm saying? And at the time, you gotta figure out is like what resonates with you, right? And for me, whatever resonates with you, you're going to have more fun being in that space. You know what I mean? So if you can just sit there and be honest with yourself and be like, if I'm going to invest, I'm going to do it because I'm passionate, right? Like I'm a big believer. If I'm going to do something, whether I'm going to make money, whether I'm going to hang out with a person, is because I genuinely like doing it. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm going to do long term because it just makes money, but I'm not having fun, well, how much success are you really going to have doing that? You know what I mean? So I think just find your lane, and I think they'll be helpful.
All Nighter Hider says dreamers that don't achieve are just asleep. And
Or they've got a really bad case of what is it, shiny object syndrome.
John says, I agree, Ray. Dreamers still have to educate, still need a plan, still have to take action. Let's see.
Well, I also think, like Troy said earlier, the dreamer does have a responsibility to at least meet all of the minimum expectations of them before chasing the dream. Like, you can't just say, hey, honey, I'm quitting my job. I'm not going to be doing anything. I have no idea how we're going to pay the bills, but we're going to make it work. Like, if you don't have a track record, that's really hard to get somebody to sign up for, especially somebody that wants stability. So you really have to at least meet your minimum expectations. And if that means that building your business, like Ray, I'm sure a business like yours could have been built on the weekends while working 9 to 5. And then eventually you're like, man, I'm making so much money on the weekends. What if I just did this all the time? And then you switch over to doing it all the time. Like these things aren't binary. We can ease into them if we have dreams. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I think you're exactly right, Dylan. Like, and you hit it right on the head. You know, for me, my wife knew that I wanted to have my own business, right? And there was a transition period for me from going full time. You know, I had a house, I had a car payment just like everybody else. And if I would have just said to her, I'm going full time photography, no cash in the bank, YOLO. You know what I mean? She'd been like, bye. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
like, I think for me, it showed dedication because I spent the years to transition, had my money in place, had everything right. So therefore, I said, hey, if I do quit and it doesn't work out, worst case scenario, I go back and do a job. You know what I mean? That was the worst case, right? You run out of money, you go back and go get a job. But I think that's where you have to kind of have your conversations, understand the risk tolerance. And I think if you go about it that way, your partner is definitely going to be more on board for sure.
Frank says, I think it goes way deeper than just dreaming. You need to be aligned in everything morally, financially, and emotionally so you can progress together. Charles McCune says, how many tries did a light bulb take? Not sure. I would have kept dreaming. Jen so Jen and Kenny are like a great example of how they make things work though, right? But Jen says dreams have to be practical, otherwise you can squash it. Like me trying to retire, reselling Labubus, and Kenny squashing that. And Stan says, yeah, back in my day we dealt in stable products like Pokemon.
Oh my.
Yeah. Let's see. What else we got here? Troy says, I want to buy a duplex or triplex and operate one unit as a MTR, STR, and rest as rent by room for next possible acquisition. Whoa, that seems like a lot of work. So you want to rent or buy a duplex, triplex, have one unit and then rent by room. Wow. I think, PTO is kind of doing that, but not, right? I think they're still house hacking, and I think they might be doing that. I know they're house hacking, and they might be doing rent by room with the other rooms in there, something like that. But man, that sounds like a lot of work. Would you think of doing that, you guys?
I think for me, like I think I'm open to everything now. Used to be that I was like, oh, nah, I'm gonna stay in my lane only long term. But what I've noticed is just like being open minded has helped me so much in my trajectory in even just the last 3 years. You know, um, so I think any strategy is available, but I also know that focusing and tunnel visioning into one strategy also makes a lot of money, right? So I have to be careful where I do not try to be the Swiss Army knife where I'm, an expert at nothing.
Got all dull tools over there with your Swiss Army knife.
Exactly.
Man, these aren't getting anything done.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that point, does rent by room interest either you a little bit though?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I think it's a great way if you can find the inventory in your market to make that work. It's a really good way to provide a much needed housing for people that can't afford to live in their own apartment or can't afford to live in their own house. Or maybe they want more of a sense of community. I know there's some places that try to develop a community around their rent by the room houses. Other ones where it's just like, nah, there's no common areas. Everybody's got their own room, no living rooms. But yeah, I think all strategies are interesting. I'm just staying focused on what I do right now, just so I don't deviate from the plan before I've mastered the one thing.
Well, Stan, full-time photography. Where do I sign up for that? You got Ray right here, man. You got to reach out to Ray. But
Yeah.
like I said, Stan's always putting out some great photos from his travels and his ventures. So you're pretty much retired anyway, Stan. Joe says, Jen, reselling Backstreet Boys tickets is a better plan. Stan says, I'm doing something similar. House hacking fourplex, 2 long-term rentals, 1 short-term rental. Okay. And then Troy said, it's all about systems. As soon as you get systems and a team in place, it can be very profitable. Yep. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. What do you see in your market though, Ray, for Airbnb? Are they starting to crack down? So you're in 2 markets, right? You're doing short-term rentals, right? Do you see a
Yes.
vast difference in the kind of regulations in both markets?
Well, I think for me, the counties that I'm in, like there's just not a lot of regulation going on, Like for me to get an Airbnb over here in Pierce County, it's an unincorporated Pierce County. Like I think I just had to like pay I don't even think I had to pay anything. I think I just had to like let them know that I was doing an Airbnb. And then in Michigan, there's no regulation in that part of the area that I was in. So I was just like, in Grand Rapids, the actual city of Grand Rapids, oh hell yeah, you have to live in your Airbnb. But since I'm on the outskirts, I don't have to really worry because there's nothing going on. Now, could that change? Yeah, but I already calculated for that. Like if it did change, I would also profit long term. It wouldn't be as much, but it would also work.
So we're talking about Airbnbs, whatnot, and we also have a Vegas event coming up in February. Will you guys be staying at a hotel or an Airbnb?
I'm not quite sure. I'm debating whether to take my RV out, do some, check out the Grand Canyon.
Flavio is hitting you up right now. He heard that. If you're taking your RV.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely flying, dude. It's like a 2-day drive if I want to get there. I'm probably staying I'm kind of undecided because I've talked to a few people about just renting out an Airbnb for everybody to stay in. But some of the math I've been doing is like some of those hotels around then in Vegas are more expensive than if we just put 2 people to a hotel room and split that. So, and we're looking at 5-bedroom Airbnbs. So, 5 people splitting it and it's still more expensive than if we just stayed in a hotel. I'm like, oh man, that kind of sucks. I think it'd be more fun to stay in the Airbnb though.
So John says short-term rentals has been profitable in my area, so that's in Reno, but MTRs would not be, and I don't think rent by the room would be either. Yeah, so you got to know your market too. That's another thing, another important thing. Flavio does say, Ray, how are the winters in your Airbnb? Still profitable?
Yeah, so my downstairs here in Washington, I have a midterm that they have a contract with the city that that's a grant writer that's kind of staying there, and then I get to backfill like any dates that he's not there. So that's absolutely tearing it up right now. But the one in Michigan, it's definitely slowed down a bit, right? But I think that's normal. You know what I'm saying? Winters over there in Michigan are probably going to be a little bit not as nice as it is over here in Washington. But the good news is we're super excited, right? Like the amount of cash flow we did in the time that we've been had our Airbnb open, it's only been like 6 months, right? We're looking at projections next year that are like, if we can optimize some things, this is going to be a really profitable property. Now, this is going to be our first full year. So we're going to see what we can do as far as optimizing winter. But that's the part that I really like. That gets me excited. I like checking the numbers once I have all the facts and then kind of going from there.
Flavio says he's staying with me and riding with Curtis. Uh, oh, that's the fun. Not that I'm making fun of that. I can't understand Flavio half the time. But you guys saw the new AirPod 3 Pros coming out?
Yes, the commercial with the auto translation.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
uh,
pretty cool.
yeah. I'm definitely interested in that. I know Mikey, because his wife's uh, in Japan and she speaks primarily Japanese. So I think, yeah, he's gonna look into getting that. So it seems pretty cool. Yeah, like it translates in real time, right? So you hear it in your AirPod, it translates, and then if you speak, I believe it translates it and puts it on your phone in text, I believe, and then you can just kind of maybe show it to the. Oh, I don't know. Does it come out as a voice on your phone? I don't know, but
I think there was an option for that, but it also looked like if the other person has AirPods as well, you can just go back and forth into completely different languages.
Dude, that's cool.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I
really
I
cool.
definitely want to check that out. And like I said, not just so I can communicate better with Flavio, but I mean, yeah, I just want to check it out and see how effective it is.
Have you guys ever watched Star Trek back in the day?
No.
No,
No, never. Okay,
I'm not a Trekkie. I'm a Star Wars person.
okay.
Yeah, me
Well,
too.
Why?
there was an episode. It's not. It was multiple episodes, but there was the thing called the Borg. Okay, and they're like human beings with like electronics built into them, right? And honestly, like I kind of see like us. We'll be all long dead by then. But like I imagine like integration of technology inside our brains that it'll just auto translate. Kind of like I don't know. I'm just geeking out. Sorry.
Flavio says he's using Google Translate right now. Um, Troy Roberts says so many municipalities see short-term rentals as a detriment to availability, affordability for home buyers. However, they really are ignorant to how housing market operates. They get info that base opinions on said expert housing authority advice. Yeah, like I think I mean this is kind of a little bit different off topic, but um like I mentioned, John, deconstructing dreams. Unfortunately, he's dealing with a kind of a health issue, an eye issue right now. So he's kind of supposed to take it easy, be in bed resting. And I think he might have said last night or the night before, they were supposed to have the kind of hearing on his ADU with the county, I believe, and they're going to be trying to see and vote and pass. And I'm not sure, so he couldn't attend, right? He couldn't attend and be there for that. So I'm not sure how that went. But like you said, there's a lot of regulation, a lot of municipalities see things differently and what is more favorable from you're not really sure where they're getting the information from, right? So let's see. Jen Tam. I would do BS Backstreet Boys tickets, but it's too much to fork up front. Yeah. Um, John says I would prefer Airbnb, but the hotels have the restaurants, so way more convenient when you're in a rush in the morning for the Vegas event. Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to wrap things up and talk about the Vegas? Oh, there was actually something interesting I saw mentioned in the when Zuber was live. He didn't get to the comment or question that someone had, but someone was asking him, has he ever thought about having the event like a week earlier? Because that person, maybe because it's the holiday weekend, this is Valentine's, so the person was noticing that flights and rooms are way more expensive for that weekend or that time. So he was just wondering if Zuber ever thought of having it a week earlier, but I don't know if he saw the question or not. But yeah,
Yeah, that would be super ideal because I hear about it every single year when I want to book that event. They're like, you're gonna be gone on Valentine's Day. I'm like, yeah, I'm hanging out with a bunch of guys and we're talking about real estate. She's like,
So are you coming by yourself this year? I forget what the plan was.
yeah, she is not at all interested in real estate. Like, she likes the idea of owning the real estate and collecting the rent checks, but with me doing all of the work. So she'll like contribute to buying the properties, but just like you deal with it from there. And I don't want to talk about the numbers or anything like that. I just want to see the cash flow. And I'm like, me too. I don't want to do any of that.
So Jeff, I don't, maybe you didn't hear me talking about Mikey's experience in his Airbnb for the Pittsburgh event, Jack's Pittsburgh event. But Jeff says, so have any of you done modifications to reduce noise neighboring units? So that's something for your Airbnb units.
I have for us downstairs. We actually just did one recently. We have a split level, so we have a door that kind of locks out the to separate the two units. Um, we had a one kind of blanket that was like a soundproofing blanket, but you could still kind of hear if it was like super loud or something. And what we ended up doing was I ended up buying this other like really fancy sound dampening whatever, and it just totally shut everything off. Like we couldn't hear anything now. So like, yeah, I just did something like that. Wasn't a huge expense. It was like $150. It was well worth it.
Yeah, so I guess the Airbnb that Mikey stayed at probably didn't spend that money for the noise reduction, but he said he didn't sleep very well. Yeah, I don't know. You guys have anything else? You gonna wrap things up or?
I have one more thing. The one thing that I work a lot with the city over here in my town, and I get to kind of rub shoulders against like a lot of people that are helping the community. And the one thing that is always difficult for me to balance is, obviously they want to help the people that are struggling, the people that are having issues with housing and all these things, right? And one of my biggest hurdles is when I'm communicating, obviously my perspectives are different, right? All of us real estate investors, we're can doers, we'll make something happen, we'll move mountains to do whatever. But when you're in this sphere of circle where, maybe people have different issues that they can't do things, I don't know, I just have a hard time even talking about what I do on the real estate investing side because I feel it I don't know, almost pokes at them in a way that's like not positive. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you guys ever have issues like that and how you kind of maneuver through it. Like how do you go through those conversations or do you just avoid them completely?
You can go first, Mark.
No, go ahead, man.
Um, I don't. Well, as an agent, it's kind of difficult not to talk to people about real estate because it is like what I do all the time. But when it comes to the investing side, I'll show people online, like on YouTube and stuff like that, like, hey, this is what I bought it for. This is what I put into it. This is what it's worth at the end of that. Um, don't really like to talk to too many people that are outside of the real estate investing sphere about that because not that everybody gets jealous or upset about it, but like this person owns this much real estate. Why do they own that? But it's like, well, instead of putting it in my 401k like you have, I just put it over here and now I have assets that are like in the physical instead of just being like sheets of paper that are traded online. So, yeah, I think people can definitely get a little jealous or mad that we own real estate, but I just don't talk to them about it because I don't want to even have the conversation. Or they're like, oh, yeah, my uncle did that at one point in time and he had XYZ issues. And I'm like, maybe your uncle wasn't a serious real estate investor then if he didn't actually, find a way to solve the problems and get through it. If they just gave up and threw in the towel and said, that's it, that's not for me, that's fine. But I don't want to hear that story because I've dealt with the problems and most of them are not serious problems. Most of the time they can be solved. So yeah, I don't know. Just my opinion.
Before Troy's, yeah, I'm not sure if Mikey let the host know it was difficult to sleep because of lack of soundproofing measures, or
Must be
Mikey.
one wild text.
Well, I don't know. Mikey was just saying they were just very passionate. He said, and no soundproofing would have helped. He said, yeah, they were very passionate. It was hours. He said a couple nights. Hyder says very fun stream. My daughter's mom was cracking up. Yeah, we just try to keep it light, keep it fun here. But yeah, everyone, thanks for tuning in. I just, I don't want to get into it too much, but it was Ray's question. I kind of want to wrap it up with that, and just kind of, a lot of the craziness going on right now. And like you said, just kind of, stay in your lane. Be around the people that you have the same common things about. And I think, me and Zuber, we had a recording today. He definitely we kind of touched on it before we went live or went on camera, but I don't know if you guys saw too, but even like Pace Morby is now like, I don't even think I'm going to go on stage. They have an event coming up. And like you said, people are so, I see it everywhere in Hawaii. It's so expensive. You start talking about housing. Everyone has their opinion on it. On you're the problem. You're the reason why there's no housing. We can't buy a home. And it's unfortunate. And like I said, just that's why what's so great about this community, right? Everyone is kind of moving in the same direction. So yeah, just like Frank's shirt, right? Find your tribe, be around the right people, be around people you can bounce ideas off of, have the same vision and same goals. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Keep doing the work out there, and everyone have a great rest of the day.
Have a good
Bye,
day.
guys.